Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Very Cold Lasagna podcast, your icy and spicy place with all the filthy casual takes on the world of sports. I am your host, DylanLasagna, and welcome to episode number 123 of this podcast. And it's a big weekend of sports overall. It's pretty big. Why is it big? Well, it's Conference Championship Sunday coming up. And yeah, this is going to be part one of our Conference Championship previews here on Very Cold Lasagna. Yes, why are we splitting it up this year? Well, I'll tell you why, man. I'll tell you why. As you can tell in the back of that hat right there, my San Francisco 49ers are once again, for the second straight year in a row, they are back in the NFC Championship game. And this time around, they're going to be facing the top seed. The number one seed ended up being this year the Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So, yeah, this is part one of our Conference Championship preview. Part two, in the next episode, we'll be covering the AFC Championship game between, well, just like last year, the Cincinnati Bengals and the Kansas City Chiefs. So, I'm excited to talk about these two games coming up this weekend. Obviously, business is business with this game and my San Francisco 49ers. So it's a lot of nerve-wracking excitement for me in this game because on one hand, I'm glad the Niners got to this point. Obviously, I want them to win it though. And this is going to be a big test, a very big challenge for San Francisco going up against the top seed Philadelphia Eagles. And as we go along in this episode, we're going to discuss why that is the case. So, that being said, I'm just waiting to get to the point of, well, let's get to Championship Sunday. Let's get to this weekend already. Obviously, there are just a lot of things leading up to this point. A lot of media talk, a lot of just jibber jabberish. I just want this weekend to come already. So, that being said, I want to talk about this thing already, but before we do, just a little bit of a housekeeping first. Like I said already, we're going to be doing a two-parter for a Conference Championship weekend this year. Last year, we just did like one whole thing, and with the AFC and NFC Championship games, even though my San Francisco 49ers were in it, this year, this time around, I want to mix it up, do a two-parter with the NFC Championship games since the 49ers are in it. That's why we're doing this episode. And then the next episode, we're doing the AFC title game. So expect the AFC title game to be in the next episode. So expect that probably soon after this one. And then obviously at some point after Conference Championship weekend, they'll have the recap. And then probably in between those recaps, you'll get a review of the Royal Rumble WWE 2023. I'll be keeping my eye on that pay-per-view because, well, obviously there are a couple notable things to watch out for, especially a certain potential return of an electrifying superstar. Hopefully. So yeah, keep your eyes on Very Cold Lasagna by subscribing to the YouTube channel, turning on those notifications, leaving a comment, sharing a like, and doing whatever you want to the YouTube channel. Also, by listening to Very Cold Lasagna, wherever you get your podcast. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor FM, Google Podcasts. Just share the word. Spread the filthy casual takes that I like to do. We can have a discussion about it. And, of course, rate and review the podcast on those audio platforms. So, yeah, do your due diligence, spread the word, and spread the filthy casual takes, or your own filthy casual takes. That being said, let's get right into this NFC Championship game between the San Francisco 49ers and the Philadelphia Eagles coming up this weekend on Sunday. And it's going to be a big game. The top two seeds facing off against each other in Philadelphia. And funny enough, this is only the second overall playoff meeting between these two teams. The first one was way back in 1996 in the NFC wildcard game. The 49ers won that game 14-0 at home against Philadelphia. And obviously, it just changed well since then. And some other notable things about both of these teams. The Niners, obviously, they're back in the NFC title game since last year. They were almost there. They were almost that close to reaching the Super Bowl when they faced the Rams last year. Unfortunately, just a lot of things did not go their way in the fourth quarter. We all remember the dropped interception by Jaworski Pop-Tart, and then the offense just collapsed. Jimmy G collapsed in the fourth quarter. Yes, he was injured, but there's no slicing or dicing about it. And, well, somehow Jimmy G was still on the team, but Jaworski Pop-Tart was not on the team and is not on the team anymore. But anyway, the Niners obviously looking to avenge that loss to the Rams from last year. And now they're looking to hopefully win this game and get back to the Super Bowl to finish the job. Meanwhile, for the Philadelphia Eagles, it's been a long time since they've got back to this point, to the NFC Championship game. This is their first NFC title game since 2017, where they blew the brakes off the Minnesota Vikings. And that was like right before they went on to the Super Bowl with Nick Foles and not MVP candidate of that year, Carson Wentz. Nick Foles led an improbable run with the Eagles, beating Tom Brady and the Patriots. We all remember the Philly special in Super Bowl 52. So, yeah, the NFC Championship game against the Vikings was kind of a precedent for what was to come against Brady and the Patriots in that Super Bowl. So, as for these two teams' recent history, well, they faced each other last year. In week 2, the Eagles had their home opener against the 49ers. And the Niners won that game 17-11. But obviously, these two teams are vastly different than the ones that we saw back in 2021. Jalen Hurts is a much different quarterback than he was a season ago. And the roster's kind of different and much more talented than it was a season ago. They added the likes of Hassan Reddick and A.J. Brown, and Jalen Hurts has another year of experience and much more talented than he was a year before. And the year of your experience makes much bigger difference than where it was last year. Meanwhile, for the 49ers, their defense is like crazy, insane in the front seven, and they have a quarterback by the name of Brock Purdy. Obviously, this year was supposed to be the year of Trey Lance, how his development was supposed to be, but that quickly derailed, not to his fault. And then they turned back the clock to Jimmy Garoppolo, who somehow wasn't released by the team or traded because the injury to his shoulder, like I mentioned. And then once he got hurt himself, then they had to turn the keys to the rookie we have now, Purdy. And then he surprised everybody. He played well with the supporting cast that he had. And then here we are at this point in the NFC title game. So let's look at these two teams, how they even got to this point of like, why are they even here? For the 49ers, with their playoff run so far, I mean, they entered this dance 13-4, the NFC second seed. I think I said this a couple of times already. They could have been the number 1 seed over the Philadelphia Eagles. But they were definitely a much different team than the one we see now, especially on offense with Garoppolo and Trey Lance. The offense being and whatever Kyle Shanahan was trying to do with that team early in the season, with some pretty bad losses to the Bears, the Broncos, the Falcons. It was kind of like, looking at in retrospect, it was kind of some bad losses when you see it that way, and now looking at it, it kind of feels like, man, there was some opportunity to get the number 1 seed, and now they just did it. And it ended up costing them. But anyway, they went on to get the number 2 seed anyway. They are now down to their 3rd string quarterback in Brock Purdy, like I said, due to injuries to Garoppolo and Lance. And Purdy, who has gone on to surprisingly win the Niners 5.5 straight games. Why do I say 5.5? Well, because he came in relief of Jimmy G for the Dolphins game. So you have to keep that into account. And yeah, going in, he looked seamless with a strong supporting cast around him on offense. Obviously, the defense has been playing very well. And going in, it seemed like the Niners were going to look strong and headed towards another NFC title game. But questions obviously surmounted, like how well Purdy was going to do, how his lack of experience was going to make up for, well, the talent around him. And, well, we kind of saw that in the first wildcard game against the Seahawks at home. His inexperience showed in the first half, and it was kind of it was pretty expected that he was like going to miss his throws. His throws were 50-50, and he wasn't sure. His decision making was not really sure what to do, and the defense didn't do that well against the Seahawks. So that didn't really help matters either. But he adjusted. Once the defense got a critical turnover on Geno Smith, and that turned the tide for the team as a whole. And the Niners jumped away with a 41-23 win. So, hey, at least got a good second half performance out of Brock Purdy and the offense. The divisional game, though, was kind of a whole different story for the Niners, because they're facing perhaps their toughest test yet since Week 7 against the Kansas City Chiefs. And in that game against the Chiefs, they weren't even at full strength. They weren't even, even though they had some of their starters back for that game, they weren't that healthy at the time. And yes, even though they weren't that healthy, obviously there's no excuse to play that poorly against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. This game, they were mostly healthy, even though they're still missing a key piece in their secondary, like Emmanuel Mosley. Sucks that he wasn't there anymore because of the injury. Anyway, aside from the fact, the divisional playoff game against the Dallas Cowboys was a much different story because it was a bigger test. Brock Purdy's biggest test yet prior to this game against the Eagles had they got to that point, because he was going to be facing a top 5 defense that could really get to the quarterback. They can really make Purdy rattled. So that turned out to be the case. Purdy was constantly facing pressure up in his face, and credit to where it's due, he didn't make a ton of mistakes. He didn't throw any interceptions. He didn't create any fumbles or turnovers. It's just that he took care of the ball. He took care of the ball enough, and when he did get time to throw, he got a couple of good throws in, but just in the first half, not enough to give the Niners opportunities to create scoring drives going. And even then, I guess it sounds a little contradictory. They did play a little, in fairness, they did play a little conservative in that game against the Cowboys. When the Cowboys themselves were pretty much shooting themselves in the foot with their own offense, with the pressure on Dak Prescott facing getting in his face. So it was mostly a battle of top 5 defenses trying to force the quarterbacks into mistakes. But the Niners, just like in the second half against the Seahawks, they got their spark going in the third quarter as Purdy got a key third down throw to George Kittle on a juggling catch. And that sparked the run late in the third. And then Christian McCaffrey, as the Cowboys were getting tired on defense, he found a hole, got near the goal line, punched it in, and he gave the Niners a solid lead. But the Cowboys were still trying to push. They're still trying to keep it within a manageable game. But the Niners survived, despite of Elijah Mitchell's weird decision to not slide in bounds to end the game. So they managed to survive one last gasp from the Cowboys, and whatever that play was to whatever that play was on their last drive. And they survived the grit and grinder 19-12 in that game. So yeah, it was a big test for Brock Purdy and against a defense that can really get to the quarterback, that can challenge the offensive line. And the Niners offensive line, when they face a really good pass rush, it has been bleh. So going into this game against Philadelphia, they're facing a really big challenge. They're facing a really big challenge with the Eagles front seven. Speaking of the Philadelphia Eagles, obviously, they entered this game as the NFC's top seed. They only played just one playoff game to gain that first round bye. For most of the season, they looked like the team to beat in the NFC due to their offense. With Jalen Hurts having a very impressive year, with not just the supporting cast around him, but with his mobility, really helping the team out, convert first downs, get the team in scoring position, and getting the team points as well. And then defensively, they're a really good pass defending team and have a really good pass rushing unit. So they were a really well balanced team. And yeah, they had a little bit of a lapse in the later portion of the season with like injuries, and they lost 2 straight games, but they still managed to earn the top seed. Getting the first round bye. And then yes, there were questions about the health of Jalen Hurts and in his throwing shoulder that he suffered in week 15. But in the game against the New York Giants in the divisional game, he looked just fine. He honestly looked just fine, dicing up what was a lifeless New York defense. Because like when you looked at that Giants pass rush, it was like they got absolutely nothing. Kayvon Thibodeau was silent. Dexter Lawrence was nowhere to be found. And then that allowed Hurts to just eat them up alive in the air. And the rushing attack, credit to the Eagles offensive line, who was back at full strength. That allowed the Eagles rushing attack, Miles Sanders and Kenneth Gainwell, to just pound the rock. As well, along with Jalen Hurts too, to just cut through the Giants' front four and find a lot of open holes. So the game was literally over by halftime. They scored like 28 unanswered, and they shut down the running game of Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones. The Giants' offense was just pretty much one-dimensional because, well, they had nothing. They have no weapons other than Saquon and Daniel Jones. They have no top receivers. They have no quality receivers. So they ate them up. They smashed them 38-7. Ironically, on the same day that they smashed the Vikings in the NFC title game 38-7. And here they are in their first NFC title game since 2017. So I guess you could say it's a very balanced matchup. It's between two teams that kind of feel similar. At the same time, they're not. Because why do I say that? Well, let's look at some of their key matchups in this game. So Brock Purdy, obviously going to the biggest game of his career in the NFC title game against an Eagles front seven that's pretty just as ruthless as the Niners front seven. Because you look at guys like Fletcher Cox, Hassan Reddick. That's a front, with those two guys leading the charge in a front seven, like the Eagles that led the league in 70 sacks. That's insane. That is insane. And pretty much everyone in that defensive front has double-digit sacks. That's insane. That is crazy. Even against the most solid offensive lines that they face, they managed to get a good amount of sacks on the opposing quarterback. So Purdy is going to be facing perhaps the most strongest front seven and the most pressure in his face than perhaps the Cowboys have. So that 49ers offensive line really has to do a good job of protecting Brock. Otherwise, the offense is gonna be going nowhere. And then for both of these teams, for the Eagles actually, how's that really touted offensive line for Philadelphia going to do against the Niners front seven? Because for the Niners, I mean, everyone says, oh, all they have is Nick Bosa. All they have is Nick Bosa on the edge. And when they last played, he really dominated the guy that was on the Eagles, on the Eagles side of Nick Bosa. I mean, sure, they have Jason Kelsey and Lane Johnson and a lot of other guys that have been really good in pass blocking this year. But let's remember, they have Nick Bosa, they have Eric Armstead, they have Charles Omenihu, who, by the way, has been, I'm not sure what is going on with Omenihu and his situation that I'm not going to go too in depth with, but I really hope that it's not a serious situation. And if it is, ends up being a serious situation, then the Niners have to do something about it. They have to immediately do cut ties with them, because otherwise it's just gonna be a bad look on them. But if anything, they should activate Drake Jackson for this game. But anyway, back to my point. They also have Kerry Hyder Jr., Samson Ebicom. So their front seven is just as powerful as the Eagles front seven, if not more. So they can find ways to get to the quarterback. They can find ways to contain Jalen Hurts. So that Eagles offensive line that's been very touted all season long is going to face their own challenge against the 49ers defensive line. And the Niners like to use to bring the house with Fred Warner and their corners. So yeah, that's going to be something. That's going to be something the Eagles will have to account for. And then obviously the biggest thing to be a little weary about with the secondary is the cornerback battle and the receiver battle. Specifically, Charvarius Ward and Diomondre Lenoir going up against A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Especially Diomondre Lenoir. I'm not sure if he's going to be covering either A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith, but if he's covering either one or the other, then, oh man, I just pray to God that he can cover one of them, especially with the speed that both of them have, because he can be very 50-50 in the secondary. It's just so inconsistent. The thing is though, Ambry Thomas is coming back. He seems to be progressing. Looks like he's going to be on track to help with some depth in the secondary. So, I mean, doesn't mean that Ambry Thomas is good either, but it helps. It helps, I guess. And then Charvarius Ward, he can get burned at times though, but for the most part, I think he should be fine on his end, wherever he covers. And then that Niners run game is actually going to be key. One of the biggest weaknesses for Philadelphia, one of the things that can really hurt them, is their run defense. So the Eagles actually were not that great stopping the run, despite their strong defense down in the trenches. So for Christian McCaffrey, for Elijah Mitchell, for Jordan Mason, And that offensive line, they have to find ways to create a lot of big holes. And well, just like any like positive yardage in one of the biggest weaknesses for Philadelphia. And by not getting too carried away with it though, you want to find like by going to an avenue where Philadelphia is weakest in, it also eats up clock in favor of the Niners. So it's a good opportunity for them. So going into this game, obviously, some of the biggest things to look for is how Brock Purdy is going to perform in the biggest game of his career. Obviously, the biggest key is to have Kyle Shanahan keep him, positive, keep expectations in check, keep having his supporting cast help him out. Especially in a hostile environment like Philadelphia. Like don't let the environment like crater down on you and it negatively impacts you. So Purdy is gonna have to do really well in perhaps the biggest game of his career. Same thing for Jalen Hurts. I mean, he's definitely improved this year. Credit to where it's due. But he's never been in a game like the NFC title game. It's a much different thing than playing in the divisional game, last year's wildcard game against the Bucs, like 18 or like 16 regular season games this year where he's done really good. It's an entirely different animal. This is his very first NFC Championship game compared to the Niners, 3 in the last 4 years. So yeah, everyone can say experience is like bullshit when the Eagles have the talent factor, but the Niners have the experience edge. And for Jalen Hurts and his offense, they're gonna have to live up to the moment. They're gonna have to know how to handle this kind of adversity, how their experience now can translate to a very big game like this one. So when you look at how both of these teams can win this game, when you look at San Francisco, well, obviously, Kyle Shanahan is going to have to really have his cojones. He's really going to have the big cojones, man, and not play 4 years football in this game. He's going to have to get everybody involved early, often, and quickly, because against a ferocious defense, especially a passing defense like Philadelphia, they're going to swarm Brock Purdy. He's going to have to find ways to get the running game going quick. He's going to have to find ways to have Brock Purdy get the ball out of his hands into whether it's Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Christian McCaffrey. He's going to have to find a way to get everybody involved. Perhaps the biggest thing to do that is attack the run defense, attack the middle of the field. That's the two big areas of weakness for Philadelphia. It doesn't have to be like, let's do a big bomb down the field, because Purdy can't quite do like those deep balls, like those very deep balls like Jalen Hurts can quite yet. But perhaps attacking the run defense, killing that clock, and attacking the middle of the field, as long as you don't get pressured to mistakes. So Kyle Shanahan has to have a schematically better game than he did in the divisional game against the Cowboys by getting everybody on offense involved early and quickly. And that offensive line has got to protect Brock Purdy much better against a very strong Eagles front seven. I mean, I've already got talking about it so much in depth, but I'll just say it again. They got a very good collection of pass rushers. Hassan Reddick, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, Josh Sweat, Robert Quinn. Like, that's a good rotation of pass rushers right there. And the offensive line against like DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons last game, Dorrance Armstrong, it wasn't that good, aside from Trent Williams. So, like Aaron Banks, Spencer Burford, Jake Brendel, Mike McGlinchey, they really have to step up. Especially, for as bad as Mike McGlinchey can be, he really has to like not embarrass himself in this game against Philadelphia. I'm not sure who's going to match up with, but whoever, regardless, everybody's got to step up in this game. And then the defense has to neutralize the downfield plays because that's something Philadelphia is going to really attack. If the pass rush cannot hit home on Jalen Hurts. And speaking of Jalen Hurts, the defense has to keep Hurts in the pocket as much as possible. You can't let him use his legs to extend plays. You can't let him go down the middle of the field like Dak Prescott did and go and get first downs. You keep him in the pocket, but you can't let him get the ball out, throw these long bomb plays, long bomb passes to, let's say, an A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith or Quez Watkins. You can't let him do that. Otherwise, he's going to kill you in the downfield throws. So, Charvarius Ward, the Emoji Lenore, whoever it is, you can't let them kill you. For the Philadelphia Eagles, if you really want to get greedy, if you really want to get aggressive, start aggressive. Get some deep shots into your top receivers. If you're Nick Sirianni, I would start get greedy with the aggressive throws down the middle, down the field with Jalen Hurts, or use his mobility early and often. And then if you're the defense, they should bully the right side of the 49ers offensive line because, like I said, with Mike McGlinchey, he's not a really good right tackle. So if Hassan Reddick's on that side, then that's a really good starting point for him. And if you're the Eagles and somehow, some way, the Niners get to you, especially with their own good offensive line, don't be afraid of the checkdowns. Like Jalen Hurts should not be afraid to defer to checking down the ball to Dallas Goedert or somebody else like Miles Sanders or Gainwell, whoever is there, like down the middle or like on the side, like for like a couple of yards. Don't be afraid to defer to the checkdowns if the pass rush is really getting to you. So, like, don't always go for the big bomb play. Like, just find a way to extend the play, get the first down. Like, don't always go for the deep strike that'll get you into scoring position just right then and there. So anyway, this is going to be a big game. This is going to be a big test for both of these teams. Only one team can get to the Super Bowl and represent the NFC. These were like two of the only teams that were really meant for destiny this year in what was a relatively weak conference. And yes, these teams were that damn good this year. And for the 49ers, obviously, it would be great for them to get there. For Philadelphia, most definitely. And both teams have their own flaws. The Niners, their secondary, especially downfield, and obviously questions about their quarterback and Brock Purdy. For Philadelphia, their run defense and their defense kind of over the middle, and maybe slightly questions about how Jalen Hurts can do in a big game like this because he's never faced a big game like this. And obviously, neither has Brock Purdy, but yeah. So this is going to be a big game. It's a little hard to pick. They're kind of evenly matched out. So I don't know. I don't know what to say. I'm not really going to predict who would win this. Obviously, it'd be nice to have my 49ers win this game. I do think that they'll find a way to do it. It will be close. All I say is that. I'll just leave it at that. I'll leave it open-ended. This is it's not like last year where I think the Niners will win the NFC against the Rams because the Rams were so 50-50 in these big games. This year it's so open-ended, like because these two teams are so evenly matched with the one glaring flaw in in this matchup being the quarterback spot. So I'll leave it to you all for once in a preview video, in a preview episode, mind you. So I'm just going to leave it like open-ended. I'm going to leave a prediction so open-ended that we don't know who's going to win. We don't know what's going to be the deciding factor in this game. So, yeah, that's my prediction. There is no prediction. The prediction is there's no prediction. We'll just let it play out. That's how I'll leave this episode. So anyway, I would like to know your thoughts on who's going to win this big NFC Championship matchup between my San Francisco 49ers and the Philadelphia Eagles. Coming up this Sunday on Fox. Yes, got to throw in the network for whatever reason. And I'm excited, but also nervous. I do hope the Niners win it somehow. Get a big upset over the Eagles, and the big story of Brock Purdy continues into the Super Bowl. But I will say I would not be disappointed. I would not be slightly disappointed. I will be initially sad if they don't win it, but I would not be disappointed if they lost. I just won't. I just won't. My heart says yes, you will. It's like yes, you will, but we'll see. We'll only see on Sunday. But anyway, that's it for this episode of Very Cold Lasagna. Let me know your thoughts on predictions on this game this coming Sunday afternoon. And I'm excited for it and pretty nervous about it. Anyway, this is DylanLasagna of Very Cold Lasagna. And thank you for tuning in to episode number 123 of this icy and spicy podcast. And keep that lasagna very cold in the fridge with your takes on the world of sports. And until next time, peace out.